Alright. So now I gotta put on my soy face and do the intro. uh...
Oh man, soy facing is so funny to me.
It's awesome. I'm just gonna start doing it all the time, but I'm worried that people think I'm actually just, that's what I actually do in picture. That'll be all people make fun of the thumbnails I do for my videos, so I'll just do soy faces with the text like everybody else. Yeah, if it's a scary movie, I'm like, and if it's like a funny feel good movie, it's me like, you know. Anyway, hello everyone. We are going to be talking about the Comey Rule, which is a Showtime miniseries. Probably gonna end up calling it a movie a lot, and I've been calling it a movie because it's basically a movie. It's only 2 parts. It's about former FBI director James Comey, who you may remember 40 years ago was fired by President Donald Trump for, I don't know, for not wanting to make America great again enough. And this is the story told from James Comey's perspective. It's based on the book that he wrote called A Big Duty. And and
What better way to describe this movie than a big dude?
yeah.
Oh,
So it's about his stalwart, defense of our sacred institutions and the the independence and the apolitics of the FBI, and preserving the integrity of the much venerated Federal Bureau of Investigation, a government agency that everybody loves. It's the story of him trying to proving how resilient our institutions are, and how all those institutions were all brought to their knees by the stupidest man on earth, Donald Trump. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not very good. So,
Uh,
what are your thoughts, just broadly,
well, I
about
mean,
this to start off?
uh, just like cackling loudly through you saying duty at the beginning, just like can tell like how seriously I took like this movie and like what it's trying to do.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, just like to not like just launch head into the political like aspects of it and like I don't know the dog shit politics of this. I just think it's like one of the worst things I've ever seen. Like like without a doubt. Like just
Yeah.
like integrating like real news footage for whatever effect, like just like that's such a recycled like hack thing that I feel like I've seen been done like so many times before. And just like the 2 episodes like depicting like ultimately what led to the fall of James Comey are not like particularly interesting. Like I don't know, I like a lot of messy pieces of art and things that aren't like narratively structured like well, or like are not like a exactly a linear plot or like necessarily the most ordered, but this is just like a fucking just who's who of like lib characters that we like cycle through that like don't really add up to much, like the 2 episodes, the Hillary's emails, and then Comey on Trump is just like how it breaks up, but nothing really drives much of like the engine of the plot. Like
Hmm.
it's I don't know, it's weird and bad in that sense where it's like the first one, it's like they're like talking about how dedicated they are to, and like serious in resolve to like figure out whether Hillary Clinton actually did something illegal with like having a private email server. The conclusion of okay, she committed a crime, like yeah, she would be tried, but like it doesn't mean that it's going to amount to something. It's not she's going to be tried and hanged in the town square, much like I would like to see, but like there's it's the stakes are really low. It's just that like the crime that Hillary Clinton would do, what that they would discover from these emails, and like a lot of the personal emails like left out, it doesn't. I don't know. There's no tension there. And then when it goes on the Trump end of things, that's a little bit more exciting because it's like Trump is like the villain, but it's all wrapped up in this Russiagate world where it's just like the Russians interfered in the election, and it's like yeah, who gives a shit? Like it's like how it's taking it, like the narrative pumps it to the extreme that liberals believe that Russian interference mattered, but ultimately like at the end of the day, I don't think it fucking like made up the minds of many people. Like a lot of people hated Hillary Clinton going into it. There are a lot of
Right.
Trump supporters. Like I think it's inconsequential, and it's trying to tell like a very grand story of two like pretty boring and bureaucratic research efforts.
Regardless of the politics of the series, which, like you said, we'll get into, I'm sure, it's just not a very interesting story because I believe I've said to you when we were talking about this before that this is one of the only crime thrillers I've seen where there's no like clear crime at the center
Yeah.
of it. Like that's the problem with the Russiagate stuff, and it was the reason why in real life when it was going on, it never really caught on outside of the sort of dedicated Democrat base. Is because it's all very vague and spurious and like hard to follow, and there's a million characters with identical names and frankly doing things that like it, you need so much context to even understand why anyone that isn't like an FBI agent would like give a shit about any of it, about Michael Flynn met with Dmitry Pekalov about Facebook posts. It's playing this thing that I think should be portrayed as very silly, as incredibly serious. And there's the scene of these two Russian guys, like they're near the reflecting pool in DC, and he's like showing his friend on the phone. There's like this sinister music, and they're speaking in hushed tones. And he's like, "Look, I made this post on Facebook that Hillary Clinton has AIDS," and it got like 300,000 likes or something. And like that's the big crime, and it just everything feels so detached from anything real. Like all of the big problems that we're supposed to be invested in this story are all very vague notions about like the integrity of institutions and whether things that are like violations of protocol or violations of law. And again, yeah, like you said, a lot of the scenes are just people sitting in coldly lit rooms and offices reading reports and just rattling off names of people that you've heard on Twitter and on TV for the last 4 years. You don't get any sort of insight into any of the actual people in this movie because they're all caricatures of the politics that they're performing for the audience.
The only one you really sort of see the inner life of is Comey himself.
Mhm.
But again,
But
it's
even
not
him,
really,
he's
it's
kind of
not
a
nuanced.
caricature.
He's like deified in
Yeah,
this.
he's very lionized.
It's like it's a man who like yeah, I think it's it's a very particular type of story. A man who represents something broader, like an institution surrounding him. And it's like, yeah, that's all well and good, but like when the crux of the story hinges on like this, or like, I mean, they call him in the movie a Boy Scout, but like he is like very much so that in terms of black and white morality of like fighting bad guys, when like the crux of the movie is like him being like, we need to maintain the FBI as the most purely apolitical and like honest, like people need to trust this institution. Like if faith in the FBI was shattered, like the country would fucking explode. And it's like that is such a delusional like way of thinking that like I cannot fathom that. Like literally the only people are like insane liberals and like people in the FBI who like buy into this own bullshit. It's like, I mean, I watched like J. Edgar like a month or two ago, and it's like that history is like publicly available. It's like from the very inception, this is an institution that has been, I mean, much like every institution of like power in the United States, has been corrupt and like abused their power. The way that Comey and like liberals like define apolitical is like in reference to Democrat or Republican. Regardless of, there is no apolitical. Like
Mm-hmm.
by trying to serve the United States, like ultimately you are playing into like neoliberal capitalism and you're propagating that to like like you want to sustain that as the dominant mode in
Mm-hmm.
this country, and that in and of itself is like a political action. And like
Mm-hmm.
that's why like J. Edgar, like a lot of what he was doing is like toppling leftists who wanted to change that, who wanted to make the states like more socialist. I mean, like obviously like he personally like hated those people, but I mean that's like broadly what the FBI as an institution does. Like they
Mm-hmm.
don't they like, I mean, both in far left and like far right extremes, they like
Mm-hmm.
suppress dissent in
It's
that, but
about
that's like overtly political.
right. It's like any other sort of thing with government agencies, which is about maintaining the status quo. I agree that Comey is really the only person you get any sort of interiority to in the movie. But even then, one, he's still a caricature because, I mean, first of all, it's based on a book that he wrote. Of course, is probably going to make him look like a good guy. Weirdly, we don't hear anything about other stuff that the FBI was dealing with during this period of time, like the Muslim ban and,
Hmm.
all that other shit. There's also a really, I think, kind of borderline tasteless and offensive scene of the Pulse nightclub shooting, of the aftermath of that, where James Comey is standing around a bunch of dead bodies and says to line up all the first responders because I want to thank them.
Oh
Um,
God.
and it never movie never asks the question of like, oh, how'd the FBI miss that one? How do you miss that
Yeah.
bad guy, James? Cause you went to the FBI to, and yeah, like, so that's the one thing. But then the other thing is like, by the story that this movie is telling, he's wrong. Like he's dumb. Like he was really stupid. It didn't work. Like his plan to, we have to make sure we're not partisan, we can't affect politics, ended up affecting politics a little bit. I don't think necessarily he made Trump win, but in terms of he didn't successfully avoid being seen as a divisive figure.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and also he got fired and none of the stuff that he did mattered. Like nobody got caught or anything.
And
And the rule of law and the institutions, all of those are to this day being flouted again by the series' own admission. They have like a title card at the end that's like, it's pretty stupid and like nauseating how it's worded, but it's like, Intelligence reports show that Russia is interfering in the 2020 election, and the president has not commented on it. Which, first of all, he hasn't commented on it. Holy fuck. But secondly, well, then none of this shit mattered. Yeah, he's probably gonna do all this again, and they don't really have any way of stopping it. Then, why the fuck do I care about what any of these people are saying?
I mean, there's something that kind of bookends it. That's it's like a guy, an aide, hears it early on and then repeats it at the end, where it's he's talking about that, hey, why don't you look at the fucking buildings? Why don't you walk down the streets of Washington? And it's it gives you a reminder that no matter who's in the office, no matter who's president, the institutions, the buildings, they are always there and are always the same. And it's just I don't know why I should respect these institutions when they are so easily defeated by the stupidest fucking person imaginable.
Right.
And it's what makes the drama of all of the Trump stuff incredibly ridiculous is because it's fucking Donald Trump. There's nothing dramatic about it there. It's
Right.
just
Right.
just being some dumb narcissistic jackass. It's really funny, but it's played very straight, and you have to see Comey be horrified
Right.
as he has to go through all of this.
Right, well, that's what I was getting at with the Russian dudes and how they were playing that all straight. This movie, this could have been I believe you can make a good movie out of this story, but you have to go all the way and you have to be silly but that's the thing. You have to recognize the absurdity in all of this. The fact that the FBI put all of this time and manpower into trying to meticulously conduct these investigations, only for all of their worst fears to happen, and they all get shit canned by the end. All of this is happening not only at the behest of Donald Trump, the dumbest man ever, but the team of the dumbest people ever around him. It's all a bunch of fucking weird ghouls just doing multi-level marketing schemes to each other. And I mean, that's still what it is to this day. Unfortunately, the first part is largely bereft of Donald Trump, which is probably why it's so fucking boring. Because it's just 90 minutes of talking about the Hillary Clinton email shit and just hearing all of the fucking arguments about the 2016 election that we've been hearing for the last 4 goddamn years, but played out in a West Wing fashion.
There are a lot of really good actors in this, which is surprising. They aren't given anything. They're not giving characters. It's just they're reading I don't know, listening to a read through of a book, where it's you can do a good voice. Gleason does a good Trump voice, but there's no real he looks ridiculous, not really like Donald Trump.
Well, that's the main thing, is that the thing with people playing Donald Trump is that nobody looks like him.
Mm-hmm.
He's so fucking weird looking, and nobody can. And the other thing, I genuinely think this is the main reason that no impression of Donald Trump is 100% good, and I don't think we're ever gonna get a perfect performance of Donald Trump. I think Gleason sometimes comes close to getting the essence of Trump. I think he gets a lot of mannerisms down very well. I think the main reason is that Donald Trump is probably the single most filmed person in the world at this point. And we see his face all the time. So I think it's easier to know that it isn't him.
The man himself is so ubiquitous of a cultural icon. It's hard to portray there, but it's the movie itself is not revealing any new information or layers to his persona. You don't
learn anything about Trump. No.
It's not and that's, I feel what makes it frustrating is that it's you a more compelling version of this that could, I think, still buy into the liberal bullshit of it is just make him something of a human character, or try to understand it. like like trying to understand the perspective of anyone outside of Comey's orbit, and like
Right.
this is like at the very least mediocre instead
The
of
only
like
thing,
dog
yeah,
shit awful.
the only thing that the film is concerned about with Trump is that he doesn't respect norms and rules, because that's all he that matters with like regard to the story of this film, is that he's breaking the rules. You're not supposed to do that,
I mean
Donald.
it's
And
the
I mean
only,
but
it's
that's
like
the
the
whole
coolest
movie,
thing
and
about
that's
Donald Trump is that
right.
he's breaking the rules.
Right, and that's what I was saying earlier, is that all the Trump stuff is hilarious. All of the scenes with Donald Trump are amazing and very, very funny, but I'm supposed to be like shitting myself during them because he's like lying and like, saying that he needs loyalty, which, like, yes, Donald Trump does in fact talk like a mob boss, but honestly, and I mean, this is, to the film's credit, true to life. This is how Donald Trump is. And one of the only positive things I can say about this is that I do think that, like I said, with Gleason getting the essence of Trump, in that, like, he's just kind of a whiny bitch. Like, he's just kind of talking about dumb bullshit most of the time.
It's just crazy to me that like this is supposedly the first time Comey is coming face to face with a very crooked politician that wants something out of the FBI.
James Comey, I can't speak much to his personal politics. He's done a great job of, concealing that, I guess. But he is a Republican, and probably, he was the director of the fucking FBI. He probably has some pretty reactionary politics.
Mhm.
But he is a liberal. And the reason why I say that is because he, like all liberals in America, it's all just about the institutions and the norms. And that's why it's so different. Because the thing is, you're right that kind of crooked politicking isn't, like, new or weird or out of place in DC or in the FBI, but it goes through the proper channels, and then it's
Mhm.
okay. You do the paperwork. There's so much worse shit that we all agree Donald Trump is doing that you could impeach him for, or could criminally charge him for, or whatever. But we're going after,
Like one of the most tenuous connections,
yeah,
like that.
something that you could never actually convict him for, because it's him just knowing that people who work for him are doing something maybe illegal. And I mean, and definitely corrupt, definitely like unscrupulous, but not necessarily outside the realm of normal American politics,
Mhm.
and certainly not something that our like legal or like law enforcement system has any way of actually holding anybody accountable for. And that's really the main thing anyone should be taking away from the Russia thing and this movie, is that they aren't good at their job of what they say their job is, of catching bad guys. All the bad guys won. Like that scene you were talking about with the aide, and Sally Yates also says it, of, the buildings and the institutions will always be there. That's not comforting, that these things that just regularly fuck up and have led to this situation will never change. Like, that's not a good thing.
And also like absolutely horrifying in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
like that like it is not in that is so inflexible that it's like this is the way things were and will always be, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so dedicated to like preserving that level of sameness, that like liberal stasis, that it's
Right.
like I mean the way it's formally reflected, and like the how it elevates that to praise, and like the when it goes into like liberal indignation mode, I think just
Mm-hmm.
make it so fucking sickening. And you get all the title cards of who resigned and who got fired, and it's just like so up its fucking ass with like that these like we need to respect, and it's like these good
These fallen
people, and
heroes.
it's like fuck every single one of them. I hope
Fuck these
everyone in
feds.
I hope everyone in the FBI loses their jobs. Like it's like that's not like I do not care about these like rule abiding nerds because it's like the only thing they're committed to is not like protecting protecting people from bad guys like they say it is. It's just like using their own like codified system of like morality by the book to like circumvent the law in ways that are helpful to themselves to serve their own like means, but they paint it as this like moral crusade. The
Okay.
absolute best thing about this picture, Joe Latruglio, Jeff
Oh
Sessions,
yeah, as Jeff
glad he's
Sessions.
like, oh, very weird casting choice for like
Extremely
three
weird.
scenes, but
Yeah.
I'm glad he's stacking that paper. I
I'm glad
love
he
to
is
see the
too.
alt comedy guys like making their way.
I thought it was a good performance as well, especially because Jeff Sessions is 92 years old and Joe
Mhm.
Latrulio is not. And he doesn't even look very old in the movie. He looks like a 40-year-old man with white hair. But it's a funny scene where Comey gives him this extremely weird advice, Rod Rosenstein, of how to like break the ice with people by asking them what their favorite candy was as a child, which seems weird to me, but uh and he's like sitting and like waiting for somebody, and he just turns to an intern and like incredibly awkwardly asks the question, and she's like,
Oh yeah.
what the fuck are you talking about? And and like, I don't know, if I feel like if there was more stuff like that, where first of all, that's like something approaching a character moment, right? Where
Hmm.
we see Rod, he like tries to make a human connection and he sucks at it because he's a weird lizard man. Um, and truthfully, that's probably how most of the people who are
Yeah,
portrayed in this
no,
movie would be.
it would be a lot better if there was that type of like if all of these people acted like the perverse aliens that they actually are and
Exactly.
would actually be
Yes.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
I like
If
one
Paul
of the
Verhoeven made this, it would be
oh my
good.
God. That I would love to see that.
That would be a 5 out of 5.
Asking about like the formal qualities of
Yeah.
it that I don't know. I
I mean,
mean,
they're dog shit. It's
yeah,
bad.
yeah, that's uh I mean what we are getting at earlier is that it's like I don't know, cut and paste like prestige TV aesthetics where it's just like I mean, I guess you could say like it's just the house style of like things looking like nice. Like it's like you have your like cookie cutter like flashy camera moves you do adopting like a very like surface level you could say looks nice or whatever. Which I mean it really doesn't. It's just like
No, I
it's
thought it.
flat.
I thought it looked really boring and kind of bad. Like there's no color, and I mean a lot of that has to do with the setting. It's all fucking office buildings and all the Scooby Doo ass rooms in the White House.
The type of stylization that like bourgeois lips like fucking lap up where it's
Well,
just
I
like
yeah,
Mad Men and like I don't know, Breaking Bad were popular on TV, and now everyone has just like aped that like, oh, you can like TV can be framed like as opposed to
right,
just two shots,
right,
or I mean just like medium close-ups rather,
yeah.
and like have just completely like done nothing with that other than this very hollow like I don't know. It's like what middlebrow dramas would look like in 2008.
Yeah, it reminded me of the movie The Post by Steven
Oh yeah.
Spielberg.
I
Don't
haven't
know if
seen it,
you've
but
seen
that makes
that.
sense. I think the guys who did fuck, I'm blanking on the names, but who did Crank? Oh yeah, Taylor and Neville Dean. Could
Ah,
they could do especially with Gamer under their belts, they would do an
oh yeah,
amazing
yeah.
Trump movie. I
They
mean,
yeah they
clearly
could do
over the
New York.
top and exaggerated, but that's what it needs.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that I don't even really want. and I know we said we're done talking about it, but I think on a more general level, I don't even really want like earnest and austere dramas about this time period. Like even later, like I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think that's one of the main reasons. Like even if I, wasn't nauseated by the politics of this, or even if the story at the center of it was even marginally interesting or like, mattered at all to my life,
Mm-hmm.
um, like this aesthetic, this sort of the sensibility that this series has. I think you said that it feels like, a prestige drama from 2008. Like, I just think culturally we're kind of past this being relevant, like being a way to compellingly tell stories about reality, because our reality has so far exceeded our ability to not only portray, but to parody it and to exaggerate it, that I think I'm like, as time goes on, like, and people try to make art that reflects on the current moment, the only stuff that resonates for me is the stuff that is the most over the top and the most sort of formally disconnected from like reality,
Yeah,
honestly.
I wholeheartly agree.
We don't really give ratings, but like I'll give it a 1. I'll give it a 1 because I liked watching Brendan Gleeson. It was funny to watch liberals cry when Hillary lost.
Yeah, always
Um,
great to see.
that was pretty funny. Um, uh, and Joe Latruglio, it was nice to see him. And it was nice to see Holly Hunter.
Oh yeah, I
She
mean,
was
half
playing a
star.
boring person, but
My half star is for just casting alone.
Well, that's our thoughts on the Comey Rule. Thank you all for joining. And again, I know we said this last time, but maybe you and I will one day talk about something that we think is
Something
good.
that we enjoy.
Yeah,
That would
something
be
that
fun.
maybe we'll riff on Richard Jewell one of these days, or
Oh,
maybe
that'd be
something good will
sweet.
come out. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Who
Maybe
knows?
someone will make a good movie, and we'll talk about that. Whatever.